Okay, boys, it looks like we are live, and I know that usually we just stick it to fantasy football. Usually I do not talk about really anything else, but I have some pretty big news. I shared this on the main fantasy football channel, and I thought that I would share it here. So, y'all know that I have been at a crossroads in my life coming up, that I'm graduating from the University of Texas with a couple degrees, and I really didn't know if I was going to be going to graduate school, if I was going to pursue this full time. And I think I'm just going to go for it. With all the support that we've had over on Patreon lately, it is encouraging in making me think that I can do it. I think that we can continue to grind away and make this a full-time gig. So yeah, that's the announcement. I just want to give everyone a massive thank you that have decided to support the show on Patreon. And not only y'all, because I know that a lot of people, they can't support the show on Patreon, and that's completely fine. Like, I wouldn't be in that same position. But even if you're coming out and just watching the videos, even if you're dropping likes, subscribe to the channel, I mean, that helps just as much, if not more. So I want to give everybody a big time thank you that has supported us up until this point. That's allowed me to make this decision. And yeah, we are going to continue to work as hard as we can. Y'all know that I can confidently say, and I don't want to sound arrogant when I say this or anything, but nobody on YouTube works harder than we do. Nobody, I don't care who it is. We are going to continue to do that for the foreseeable future. And with your support, I think that we can afford to continue to do it. So I owe y'all a massive thank you. But that should be it. Let me go through. Let me get these rookie mock drafts started. So I will say that at the very beginning, we are going to be doing these through Patreon. That way I can get everybody supporting the channel. They can get their shot at jumping in these mock drafts right away. And then afterwards, we can go through and we can open it up to the general YouTube chat. And also, we are going to be doing Superflex rookie mock drafts at the very beginning. And at the very end of the live stream, we'll also do a one quarterback mock draft, because I know not everybody's playing in Superflex leagues. And even though I only play in Superflex leagues at this point, even though I dropped all my one quarterback leagues years ago, I think that we should still at least try to help those people out that are playing in one quarterback. But yeah, let's go through. And yeah, thank you guys. I see everybody in the chat giving us some congrats for deciding to make this a full-time gig, and it's literally because of y'all. So I need to thank y'all. You do not need to be saying anything for me. It's 100% on you, and I truly appreciate it. Yeah, no, JN says you're a workaholic, my dude. Laugh my ass off. Yeah, no, trust me, my girlfriend hates that. My girlfriend tells me every day that I'm a workaholic, probably threatens to leave me because I'm such a workaholic. Like I said, guys, I've been pursuing 2 degrees. I've been taking more hours than pretty much any other college student that you'll ever have, and I'm running pretty much a full-time business already. So hopefully graduating very soon is going to free up our schedule. Hopefully I can make more videos, do more live streams, spend more time over there on Patreon. But regardless, let me get this link out to y'all for Patreon if y'all want to join these rookie mock drafts. Also, our rookie draft rankings are updated over on Patreon as well. So if you want to check those out, I updated them this morning for the rounds 4, 5, 6, 7. Y'all know that we already went through and updated them after round 1. We updated them after rounds 2 and 3. And now we get our 3rd update out there. And I promise you more are going to be coming up. I bet you in a week there's another update, just because those are instant reactions. Of course, once we have time to dive into the situations a little bit more, maybe our minds change on a few things. But yeah, let's go. And Peter says, let me see what Peter said real quick. He said, I'll hop on Patreon in light of your recent decision. I appreciate you going for it. Thank you, my man. I promise you, I genuinely appreciate that. And I promise y'all guys, I'm going to continue to work as hard as I can for y'all. And like I said, for a bunch of people over there on Patreon, y'all are going to have access to my rookie draft guide that I am working on. And I promise to get that out by the end of the month. I'm just going to have to make sure that this week in particular, I have like 2 research papers to do. I have 4 exams as well. If I don't do well on a few of these, hey, may not be graduating. So let me focus on that. And then after this week, I'm going to go through and I'm going to make sure that that draft guide is exactly what I want it to. That draft guide is up to our standards. Okay, but anyway, let me go through, grab the link for the mock draft and get this out. Like I said, guys, we are going to be doing the Superflex one at the very beginning, and then we are going to be doing the one quarterback at the end for everybody. And I'm very sorry for making this way too long of an intro. I just need to get to it. Come on, let's get these links out right now. Okay, copy that link, sending it out on Patreon. Matt, got you. Okay, Jesse, got you. Joe, got you. Jayan, got you, my man. Let's just send all these out. Okay, also in this mock draft, I am going to be taking the rookie pick. Actually, let's not take the 105. The 105 is boring. Let's go back to the 109. And the reason I'm going to take the 109 is because I kind of want to talk about that rookie pick once we get to that selection, because I think it's a great spot to be at, honestly, in this year's draft. But let's switch back and forth. Okay, Noah is sending you this out. Paul sending you it out as well. Tia Kappa says, Field Yates and Matthew Berry crying in their basement since Mason Dodd decided to go pro. Yes, sir. I promise you, we are coming for Matthew Berry. I mean, it's honestly laughable. Just seeing where we are at now, because I promise you 3 years from now, we are going to be crushing everyone. I can guarantee you that, especially on the main fantasy football channel. That channel is going to be over 100,000 subscribers this year. I'm going to be making 5 videos a day. I'm going to be live streaming every single night, just like we did last football season. I promise you, I'm going to be working 20 hours a day on that channel, sleeping 4 hours a day, and hopefully I can do it. I will say we are moving to Florida, so it's going to be a little bit of a different situation. My girlfriend's not going to be able to take care of the dog when we just go full grind mode. Hopefully I can get an apartment complex downtown that has a dog park in it, so I can just go drop her off there. But okay, anyway, let's go and see if we should. I'm just going to send this link out right now because we made this intro way too long. I'm going to send the link to join the mock draft into the general chat for everybody who's came out. Once that joins, once y'all join that, fill us out, we will switch over the screen and get this mock draft going. I'm going to try to get 3 or 4 going today just because I want as many drafts as possible. I want to try to get as many people in here as possible. I will say that you have a few of the typical names in here. Roster Bader out here yet again. He was participating in our mock drafts a few days ago. And also, guys, let me know if y'all want me to do a startup mock draft tomorrow with the rookies included. That way we can see where guys like Najee Harris, Travis Etienne stack up against current veterans. Or if y'all want me to continue to just talk about rookie mock drafts, because I know a lot of people are going to be doing those very soon. But anyway, this has filled up. Crap, we need to go through and fix our display capture. Please, guys, just give me a quick second to do this. I know that this is very annoying. Okay, come on, Mason. Come on. Sleeper. Bam, we got it. Okay, perfect. Slide that over. Can y'all see everything? Let me slide this. Okay, perfect. We can actually zoom in on the screen as well. I should have set that up beforehand, but nonetheless, we kind of rushed into doing this. So let's start it. Looks like we have this in linear mode, which is something that we always mess up. Okay, beginning the mock draft. Let's go. Hirsch up on the clock, and we can naturally assume that this is going to be one of 2 players. It's either going to be Trevor Lawrence, or I think it should be Trey Lance, but nonetheless, the Dynasty community is really set on having Trevor Lawrence there at the 101, despite the situation that Trey Lance went into. So I think if you have the 101 at this point, you probably should be going Trevor Lawrence, just knowing the trade value that you could get afterwards. But it looks like Hirsch joined the mock draft, and he kind of backed out. Oh, okay, so he is back. That dot is back up. Okay, so perfect. And also, thank you for everybody who's dropped a like on the live stream right now. I see that we are over 30 likes. That is absolutely massive. But Ryan up on the clock here. I think that it's a clear 102. I've had this question a lot on Patreon. People going, Mason, do you think I can take Trey Lance at the 102? And my response is, not only do I think you can take Trey Lance at the 102, I think you have to take Trey Lance at the 102. If you pass up that selection, honestly, it will probably just piss me off. If you go Justin Fields, you go Najee Harris over Trey Lance, like, please don't DM me. Don't let me know about it, because it's going to put me in a very crappy mood if that's how you're deciding to represent the flock. But anyway, no, Trey Lance goes at the 102. Zach Wilson, Najee Harris at the 103, 104. I think after the first 2 picks, that's where you can get a little creative. That's where you can see anyone go from Zach Wilson, Najee Harris, especially in this mock draft where it is tight end premium. Maybe they go Kyle Pitts, they can go Justin Fields, and I have seen some arguments made to beat Jamar Chase. Now, if you look over at our rookie rankings on Patreon, we don't have Jamar Chase in that same tier, just because those quarterbacks and running backs are going to be so much more valuable when you're comparing their value to veterans. But also, guys, real quick, let me know if the microphone sounds decent. Y'all know I'm still dealing with this new microphone, and I hope it sounds a lot better than what we used to. And like I said again, guys, thank you so much for everybody on Patreon, because I promise you, it would not have been possible for me to get this microphone without the support on Patreon. So y'all are improving the channel. And also, I don't want to keep talking about myself. Let's just talk fantasy football. I hate when people go through and they just continue to talk about themselves like anybody cares. No, I know y'all are here for fantasy football, so that's what we are going to be talking about. But anyway, here you have Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, the top 4 quarterbacks off the board. You have Najee Harris, the top running back, the top tight end, and wide receiver as well. So Nash is cashed up here with the 108, and I think that this is a very easy selection. I hope he makes the right decision, and Let's see what he does. Jay in here probably going to be going with, no, never mind. I was going to say probably going to be going with the quarterback out of Texas, but no, he decides to go Travis Etienne. That is the correct selection in my opinion. And the reason I wanted the 109 pick here is because at the 109, you are going to see a massive drop off after this in tiers. So here you get a clear Javonte Williams, and now at the 110, this is where you have to make the difficult decision. This is where you're looking at that massive tier of wide receiver twos, a guy like Devonte Smith, a guy like Jalen Waddle, Rashad Bateman, Rondale Moore, and then you can go down a little bit more to a Terrace Marshall. You're going to have people arguing for any one of those wide receivers here at the 110. I think you can't go running back. You could make the argument for Mac Jones. Mac Jones is ranked around this range in our current Dynasty Superflex rookie rankings, but it's going to be one of those wide receiver twos, or it's going to be Mac Jones. You can't really go anywhere else with this selection, and this is why I think the 110 is one of the worst spots to be in this year, because at that pick, you're going to be seeing about the same quality player that you would have seen at the 203. So I just want to bring this up as kind of a humble brag, because if y'all remember at the very beginning of the offseason, when we just started talking rookies, I made a video saying, go trade for the 109. The 109 pick is the one that you need. Now, I didn't think that Javonte Williams would be the guy at the end of the tier. I thought Devonte Williams would be the guy at the end of the tier before Devonte Smith, because there we were just looking at the production profile. We didn't have the weight concerns actually valid at that point until he goes out to his pro day, until he goes and then actually measures in at 166. Then he obviously drops out of that tier, and Javonte Williams is a top 2-round NFL draft pick. So Javonte Williams jumps up. So yeah, that rookie pick 109 is what you want. Like if you're sitting here and you're at the 203, the 204, you need to be doing everything that you can to try to get to this rookie pick 109. That way you get a Javonte Williams instead of a Pat Freiermuth, because we know that the difference in those two players is absolutely massive. And I will say here with Pat, he is ranked in the middle of the second round in our current Dynasty rookie rankings. And I do not think that you can take him ahead of Rondale Moore or Trey Sermon. Just simply, if you're looking at both Rondale Moore and Trey Sermon, the landing spots are too good with those players to pass up on them for a tight end that is not going to produce year one, because with Pat, it's going to be so hard to see his dynasty value actually increase, especially when we're not expecting the Pittsburgh Steelers to have a top 5 offense in fantasy, and they already have Deontay Johnson, they already have Chase Claypool, they already have Juju Smith-Schuster, and now they look like they're going to have a workhorse running back in Najee Harris. So there, I think that you actually have to drop him down probably to this 206 range, because I would prefer Rashad Bateman, even with the bad landing spot, easily Trey Sermon, easily Rondale Moore, all over Pat Freiermuth. And yeah, I mean, that's simple. What I want to ask y'all is, I don't want to talk about Pat really anymore. I want to talk about Trey Sermon, because I think Trey Sermon is going to be one of the most polarizing players in rookie drafts this offseason, and that you're looking at him and you're going, okay, he is a clear tier down of Travis Etienne and Javonte Williams, and he is so far ahead of all the other running backs that you are seeing go on day 3 of the NFL draft. So you're having to try to reach on Trey Sermon for a running back, just because you really have nobody else in these ranges. So I think in mock drafts, you're probably going to see Trey Sermon going in the middle of the second like he goes here. But I promise you, in your real life drafts, I think based on teams needing running back, I think a lot of the times you're going to see Trey Sermon, especially as we get closer to the season, he is going to be creeping closer and closer and closer to being a first-round pick alongside Devonte Smith and Jalen Waddle. Now, I can't get there with him. I think we're always going to have Waddle and Devonte Smith over Trey Sermon, but I promise you, that's a player that is going to be going higher in your real-life drafts than he goes in this mock draft, because we don't have rosters attached to this. You're not looking at Trey Sermon as a guy that's going to fill your running back need, which a lot of teams have. You're just looking at his pure value. So I think that while, yes, it's cool to see you get him here at the 205, that's very rarely ever going to happen. And now we are up on the clock, and I really wish that we had our Dynasty rookie rankings pulled up, because this ADP list is just completely out of whack. Maybe I can go through and pull up our rankings ASAP, just because I really need to see names. We were live streaming. We were just talking nonsense. So if we are going through right now, really none of these players are popping out as great values at this selection. I think here you can convince yourself into a Nico Collins based on the landing spot, based on the fact that he gets round 3 NFL draft capital. But if we were looking at all these guys, yeah, I think that we actually no, we're going to go with Michael Carter Jr. here. Michael Carter Jr., y'all know, a running back that I really do not like. If you look at his overall upside, it's just simply not there. I just didn't have the time to actually go through and think about our options. Let me pull up our rookie rankings because I did sit there and I swear to God, it took me probably 3 hours to finalize those from what we had before the NFL draft. And Michael Carter Jr. was definitely a faller. He finds himself in a good landing spot. I think most of the time here, you probably should pass up on him to get one of those wide receivers. But the reason you can convince yourself to take Michael Carter Jr. here is not because where he should be valued in Dynasty, but where he will be valued in Dynasty. Because even if I don't like Michael Carter Jr., we know that a lot of people are going to see the Jets landing spot. A lot of people are not going to be willing to let go of their priors on Carter Jr. And I promise you, I've already seen this in the comment section of our new rookie video that you can find on the main channel. People are telling me, Mason, you're way too low on Michael Carter Jr. I've heard the same thing over on Patreon with people telling us that he's way too low in the rankings. So I guess you could make the argument that you have to pick him in the late second if he falls there based on the trade value that you will have afterwards. And that's a big thing with Dynasty. A big thing with Dynasty is seeing how you personally value these players and how you would actually draft them knowing that they're going to have trade value after. And this is kind of what we were talking about back up at that 101 pick. Y'all know right after Trey Lance gets selected by the San Francisco 49ers, I came on and I went, if we look at the situation, if we look at the rushing upside, I understand Trevor Lawrence is a much better NFL quarterback, but at the end of the day, we are playing this to score fantasy points. I believe that Trey Lance is a safer option to outscore Trevor Lawrence over the next 3 years. But if I had that real 101, if you ask me, Mason, I have the 101, who should I take? The correct answer is probably Trevor Lawrence, just because once you take that selection of Trey Lance, you're just going to automatically be losing out on trade value that you would have had with the Trevor Lawrence. So even if you personally value a Trey Lance a little bit higher, especially when you're playing in as many dynasty leagues as I am, it's sometimes a very bad decision to go with your own rankings instead of going with the market value. Of course, when you have the players in the same tiers, if you have guys that are neck and neck, go with your own rankings because the value in trade is not going to be too drastic. But sometimes when you see that value just be night and day, like I've gotten Trey Lance at the 104 in one of our real life Dynasty Flock Patreon leagues. And there, you're never going to see Trevor Lawrence making it to that pick. So I think based on that knowledge, maybe if you have the 101, you just kind of have to go Trevor Lawrence. And the same thing can be said here when you see a Michael Carter Jr. fall to the late second, where, I don't love Michael Carter Jr., but at the end of the day, compared to the other players in this range, we can say that, hey, he's going to have more trade value afterwards than a Nico Collins, even if maybe Nico Collins, in my opinion, may be a better asset over the next few years. It really doesn't matter if you were trying to capitalize on dynasty value, if you're trying to make sure your roster is best set to win in the long run, because if Michael Carter Jr. did win that starting job, and if he came out and he popped as a low-end running back too, you could possibly immediately flip him for a future second plus a player like Nico Collins. So I think that's how you have to understand the real life dynasty value versus your own set of rookie rankings and how to draft accordingly. Because if you just go into a draft, you don't take into account your own league format, if you don't take into account the value that you're going to see across the dynasty community with that player, I think you're just kind of going to be bleeding value. Okay. So anyway, we are about to be back up on the clock at the 309. Let's see where JN decides to go. He really sniped us on back-to-back picks. I would have loved to see Travis Etienne fall to the 109. I would have loved to see Amari Rogers fall to the 209. Hopefully he doesn't take our guy here. And he doesn't. He takes Long. Now here with Long, it is a player that wasn't on the radar coming in, but you can't ignore the draft capital that he had as a third-round pick. And also, if you look at his profile, it's not like they drafted him to be a blocking tight end. It looks like they drafted him to definitely be a receiving option. And we can look back and go, you know what? The current coaching staff, the current front office wasn't really set in stone when they drafted Mike Gesicki. So you can make the argument that you saw with Jacksonville replacing James Robinson, that maybe it's the same thing with Mike Gesicki. So even if we think Gesicki is a better tight end than Long, it's another situation that you see in Cleveland where, we love David Njoku. I think David Njoku is a much better tight end than a Harrison Bryant, than a Austin Hooper. But at the end of the day, you have to know who the coaching staff wants to feature, and that's not going to be David Njoku. Maybe it's not Mike Gesicki, but here at the 309, we are going to be taking Tutu Atwell, a wide receiver with not much upside because, yes, he is small. He is smaller than I am, and I said this when he got drafted. I have no idea how a wide receiver that is smaller than I am can ever possibly do anything at the NFL level, but nonetheless, I think based on the draft capital that he got, he is going to have an immediate role. I think that he is the long-term replacement for Deshaun Jackson. If you look at how Deshaun Jackson really just can't stay healthy, I think maybe Tutu Atwell comes in and he plays a little bit sooner than most people expect. Okay. So let's go through, and Marky Mark says, Davis Mills, any good question mark? Man, here with Davis Mills, I mean, you're looking at it as a quarterback that has no upside. And I can get into this as we fill our next mock draft. But yeah, let me switch over to this screen real quick. Let me, in this mock draft, go start a new one that we can get going. And yeah, message me on Patreon, guys, if y'all are wanting to get into this mock draft. Let me go grab that Patreon link one more time. Send that out. We can talk about Davis Mills and why I'm going to be avoiding Davis Mills compared to a quarterback like Kellen Mond, because I think that this is something that goes way overlooked when you're trying to evaluate these players that are probably never going to be starters for you, but you still have to try to figure out what kind of dynasty value that they may have. So yeah, I just sent that link out for Patreon. Please, guys, if you want to get in this mock draft, if you want to see our rookie rankings, if you want to have access to our rookie draft guide, if you want to get in a real dynasty league, if you want to do anything, please go shoot me a DM over there on Patreon. And also, I had an announcement that we are going to be doing on Patreon once we get to the summer, once we get to June, and I'm graduated, once we have our rookie draft guide done, so I have that giant burden lifted off my shoulders. I am going to be interviewing people from Patreon about their own dynasty formats. I'm sorry, not their own dynasty formats, more so their own dynasty strategy. These are going to be guys that I play in leagues with. I'm going to try to find the guys that I really respect the way they play. I'm going to be looking at rookie drafts going, you know what, this guy really killed it. I want to talk to him. I want to see what he thinks about the overall dynasty strategy that he attacks these leagues with, and maybe it can help y'all. I don't know if we're going to be doing those for videos on the main channel. Maybe we just do them as Patreon only content, but please, if y'all are interested in that and you're over on Patreon, shoot me a DM just saying, hey Mason, I possibly want to be on the channel. That way we can get that set up. But anyway, let's grab this link. Let's start sending it to people on Patreon. Let's make sure that this is a linear draft rather than a snake, because that is something that we always mess up. Okay. So there we go, linear. I'm going to be picking closer to the top of the draft at this point. That way we can be in the early second, because the early second is a very intriguing spot that I've really had a hard time answering questions on Patreon about as of late, just because the early second round, you're going to be seeing a lot of those wide receivers that are in the same tier, a lot of those guys that look like they are neck and neck. Okay, but anyway, grabbing that link, sending it out over on Patreon. And then also, if we don't fill it through Patreon, I will send it out in the live YouTube chat to try to just get some more people involved. And like I said, guys, this next one is also going to be a super flex league. Now, I will say that we will do a one quarterback mock draft at the very end, but these Superflex drafts are way more useful to actually watch, to actually observe on YouTube, because even if you're not in a Superflex league, then you can try to see where the real tiers are for these quarterbacks. And then you can go, okay, how does my own league marketplace and my one quarterback league value these quarterbacks? Then you drop them down to those ranges. And then you also already have the order of the skill positional players. So it's not too different. You just have to do a little bit of tweaking to see exactly what pick ranges you're going to be seeing players in. But you can't really do that same thing if you play in a Superflex league and you're looking at a one quarterback draft. If you're looking at a one quarterback draft and you play in a Superflex league, you can't go, okay, where are these guys going to be valued in Superflex? Because that's just two completely different things. Okay, but sent out that link to a ton of different people. Now let's talk about Davis Mills versus a guy like Kellen Mond, because I think this is a great thing to talk about in Dynasty Superflex. And one quarterback leagues, you're not rostering either guy. So please don't even think that they're valuable in that format in the slightest. But we have to ask ourselves, not who is the most likely quarterback to end up with a starting job out of Davis Mills and Kellen Mond. Because let's go through the scenarios. Let's go through best case scenario for both quarterbacks. And like I've said so many times before, guys, I don't lie to myself like a lot of other dynasty analysts do. I don't want to sit here and act like I am some great quarterback prospect evaluator coming into the NFL, because guys that get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to evaluate these quarterbacks, general managers that get paid millions of dollars and millions of dollars of resources are invested into these scouting departments to make sure that they can identify the next Patrick Mahomes, because that's a just franchise changing pick if they can do such a thing. they are going to be way better at evaluating these quarterbacks from a real life NFL standpoint. But what we can do is we can look at the situation. We can also look at the rushing upside, because we understand how important rushing is at the quarterback position for all of these guys in fantasy, because fantasy is not real life. Fantasy is completely different. I mean, Jalen Hurts can be a top 3 quarterback in fantasy while being a below average quarterback in the NFL. This is a very easy concept to understand. So when you look at a player like Davis Mills, we go, what is the best case scenario here for him? The best case scenario is Deshaun Watson suspended for the entire 2021 season. That's something I don't even think is going to happen, but we are talking best case scenario. We're going, okay, Davis Mills, let's just paint the perfect picture for him. So Deshaun Watson suspended for the entire season. Then Davis Mills is thrusted into a role where he is now going to be the starting quarterback for the Houston Texans. And we go, okay, what should we be expecting from Davis Mills? Okay, so he's a rookie quarterback. He literally has no rushing upside at all. You're not going to be expecting any points coming on the ground from Davis Mills. And he's going to be throwing to Brandon Cooks. He's going to be throwing to Kiki QT. He's going to be throwing to nobody. I mean, Nico Collins, you can throw in there. He's going to have one of the worst supporting cast in the entire NFL. One of the, I don't want to say worst coaching staffs, but a coaching staff that we have no idea what to expect from them. And then he has no rushing upside. So what would the potential be there? I mean, are you going to be expecting a high-end quarterback 3, if that? And that's best case scenario. That's not even the likely scenario. The likely scenario is he never starts an NFL game throughout his entire career. And the case with Kellen Mond is, yeah, the likely scenario is he never starts a game the entire career. But what happens if he does? What happens if he does start and we go, crap, this is a quarterback with rushing upside. This is a quarterback playing behind a great offensive line. This is a quarterback throwing to Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. So you start checking these boxes and you go, maybe I can actually start Kellen Mond if something happens to Kirk Cousins. If Kirk Cousins gets hurt, or maybe Kirk Cousins isn't there in the long term and they decide to pull a Drew Lock and give a day 2 quarterback an actual start at a starting job, then you can start him in fantasy. But in the case of Davis Mills, that just simply would never happen. So please understand the upside of these guys that you're going to be expecting. Let me send this link in the general chat for us to fill out this mock draft really quickly. But also, let me see if we need to do anything. And yeah, I'm sorry that I haven't been able to read the live chat as much as I usually do, guys. Just kind of crazy all over the place currently. And it looks like a bunch of people just left the stream to join the mock draft. So that's probably not a good idea for me sending that out in the live chat. But nonetheless, we are going to continue to do it because I know that y'all want to get involved in these mock drafts. I want to fill them out. I want to make sure that we are trying to help as many people as possible. Okay, so got all of that set up. Also, what I want to do is I want to pull up my Patreon rankings. That way I don't really have to sit here and think as we make the picks. We can just sit here and look at our rankings, draft out that, and commentate off of everything else. So it's going to be much, much easier for me to stream. Okay, I'm having to log into Patreon on Google Chrome real quick. So hopefully I remember my password because it's not saved on this. Just give me 1 second, guys. We will get this mock draft going. And okay, I see that we've also had some more people decide to support the show on Patreon. Guys, thank you so much. And if you're over there on Patreon, I really want to do everything I can for y'all. So of course, we are going to be giving y'all our Dynasty rookie guide. And of course, y'all have access to my rankings. You're going to be in Dynasty leagues. You have access to asking me questions. I'm going to break down your Dynasty teams, all that stuff. But I want to do more. I'm going to be graduating. I'm going to have more time. Like we've already established, I am a workaholic. So please, if y'all have any ideas of things that I can do for y'all over there, if you have a cool idea, like if we hit 300 people, we can do some kind of special event, let me know because I want to do something fun like that. I want to get some more events going rather than me just kind of talking to people one-on-one. Maybe we can do like a Zoom party. Maybe I can fly some people out to draft with us, hang out, and just maybe check out the new studio that we're going to have in Florida. But regardless, we have Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance going off the board here at the 101 and the 102. So now we are faced with the decision at the 103. Where are we going to go? And in my opinion, I think with the landing spot, with him projecting to see so many touches per game, and we know that he has the receiving upside at the same time, I think at this point you have to take Najee Harris here at the 103, even in a Superflex league, because this is something I talk about all the time. Those running backs on their rookie contracts are literally gold if they are 3-down guys. If you can project a guy to be a workhorse running back on their 3-down contract when we know that these guys, their rookie seasons are automatically going to be getting the volume like a Jonathan Taylor. That guy the next offseason is going to be a first-round startup pick. That guy has a very high likelihood compared to maybe a quarterback, compared to especially a wide receiver or a tight end, to skyrocket in value. So when you can identify those running backs, I think you go after them. Of course, this draft is going to be a little bit different with Trevor Lawrence being a generational prospect, with Trey Lance landing in literally the best situation that we have ever seen from a top 3 overall draft pick at the quarterback position. So yes, it's a little bit different that Najee Harris is the 103 rather than up there at the 101, 102, but I think it's the correct decision to have Najee Harris at the 103, to be honest, even though we did have our rookie running backs ahead of Joe Burrow in our rookie rankings last year. Guys like both Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Jonathan Taylor. And of course, Jonathan Taylor, that looks like a good call at this point. Clyde Edwards-Helaire definitely looks like a bad one. Okay, but Fields and Pitts going directly after this. Like I said, guys, I think that this is one big tier. I think once you get to about the 107, that's where the tier drops off to 108, 109. But before that, I think once you're at 103 all the way to 107, you can really go in whatever direction and nobody's going to look at you like you're crazy just because they're all solid options. But please don't time out here, man. I hate seeing timeouts. That's something that we actually have had to deal with in the real life, real money Flock Patreon Dynasty leagues, which has been, I want to say, just pissing me off. It's been so frustrating dealing with multiple people timing out across different leagues and real money drafts over there. I mean, we are going to have to do something to address that because it has been like pulling teeth to try to get some people to make real life, real money dynasty picks. But anyway, we have over 200 people in this live stream right now, guys. Thank you all so much. I genuinely appreciate it. So I genuinely do. Please go down there, drop a like. If we can get this live stream over 100 likes, that would be absolutely insane. And I will come out and do a live stream tomorrow with y'all where we go through an entire dynasty startup. That way we can look at some players compared to the veterans. Like, are you going to be going with possibly a Jamar Chase? Are you going to be going with Calvin Ridley? And we can go that throughout the entire draft. But please drop that like as it helps us out so much. And y'all know I made like 30 videos throughout the entire NFL draft, just running around like a chicken with my head cut off, doing everything that I can. Dropping a like really does help. Okay, but let's pull up our Discord chat real quick just to make sure that we don't have anything that is going on too poorly with the current Flock Dynasty Patreon leagues, because all those real life rookie drafts are going on right now. But Mike, I see you in the general chat, my man. Mike, thank you so much, man. Tio Kappa is out here, guys. If y'all don't know, Tio Kappa makes all of our thumbnails. He does so much for the channel. Everybody, please just spam thank you, Tio, in the live chat right now. Please spam it over and over and over again. He lives overseas, so at like 3 a.m., he was up throughout the entire draft, making every single thumbnail the second the player got drafted for us through the NFL draft. It helped us out tremendously. We wouldn't have been able to pump out nearly as much content over the past few days if it wasn't for him. So please, guys, just spam in the chat. Thank you, Tio. Thank you, Tio. Thank you, Tio. Over and over and over again. I'll get us started off. Okay, so now we are back up on the clock here at the 203, and this is what I was talking about. This is what I was talking about at us being just in a massive tier of wide receiver twos. I want to point out the fact that here Kid Royale went with Jalen Waddle over Travis Etienne. I hate that selection. I mean, I really, really do not like taking Jalen Waddle over a first-round running back that profiles to be a 3-down guy, even with James Robinson being in town. But nonetheless, we are up here at the 203, and if we are going through and looking at who is currently the highest ranked wide receiver in this tier for us, we do, I believe, have it as, actually no, Rondale Moore has gone off the board. So it is going to be Rashad Bateman, and Rashad Bateman is a wide receiver that I've debated back and forth with Terrace Marshall, and I think the situation is slightly better for Terrace Marshall, and I think they are equivalent wide receiver talents going in. But like I said, I'm just a little bit hesitant, and I think that there is a concern with the medicals with Terrace Marshall that we maybe don't fully understand, because I find it very bizarre how far he fell. I found it bizarre that he went behind both Tutu Atwell and Dwayne Eskridge, and I know we said the same thing back in 2019 with DK Metcalf, when DK Metcalf looked like he was going to be a real-life first-round NFL, not dynasty pick, NFL draft pick. He falls to the very end of the second round to the Seattle Seahawks. We went, crap, maybe there's something going on with his neck, because we know that he had those issues in college. Maybe NFL teams were scared. And hopefully it's the same thing with Terrace Marshall, where nothing really was there to be scared of and teams were just a little bit hesitant to take that risk. But no. Okay, crap. Guys, this is why it's so hard to live stream and draft at the same time. Elijah Moore would have easily been my pick there over Rashad Bateman at the 203 if we noticed that he was still available on the board. So please don't look at this after and go, Mason, how the hell did you pass up on Elijah Moore? I passed up on him because I wasn't paying attention. We were trying to live stream. We were trying to look at what was going on in the chat right now with 200 people. But yeah, here I think you have to go with Elijah Moore over Rashad Bateman, given the fact that Elijah Moore should be playing in an offense where you see way more pass attempts happening, as well as the fact that I just like Elijah Moore more as the wide receiver, and we've been on that all offseason. Y'all know how much I love Elijah Moore with his prospect profile, with what he did as a true sophomore, with what he did as a true junior. I think you have to be kind of all in on Elijah Moore at that point. Okay, so Hero Killer says 10 million dead cap space with Jamison Crowder. Guys, I think that Jamison Crowder there is not going to affect Elijah Moore too much, because I could easily see this team moving on from Crowder. I mean, this is a team that probably isn't going to be competitive this upcoming season. They bring in Corey Davis. They drafted Denzel Mims last year, and now they draft Elijah Moore. I think that we could look at that New York Jets offense and go, hey, it looks like they have no plans to use Jamison Crowder going forward. So I'm honestly not even imagining that Jamison Crowder is going to be with the New York Jets next season, but that's just me. Let me know what y'all are thinking about that in the live chat. Okay, so now Amari Rogers, I think that we have to call Amari Rogers the highest riser after the NFL draft, because you go through and really the first round is full of a bunch of players that you knew were going to be in the first, and you can say the same thing about the second. I guess you can call the highest rising running back Trey Sermon, given the fact that he gets the landing spot, he gets the NFL draft capital, and you call the highest rising wide receiver either Amari Rogers or Nico Collins, to be completely honest. But here, this is what I was talking about when we decided to draft Michael Carter Jr. in the late second round of last mock draft, because, yeah, I didn't love Carter Jr., but here you see him go in the mid-second, and this is what I was saying in that I think the Dynasty community value is going to value him as an early second to a mid-second on the leagues where people really aren't paying attention to what's going on, leagues where people really don't know what to look at for these rookie running backs. So if you could take him, just say at the 211, and then hopefully he flashes early on his rookie season, and then you can try to flip him for a profit, maybe get a future first, maybe get a second round pick and a guy like Nico Collins or an Amari St. Brown, someone that starts a little slow. I think that's something you do, even though we don't like Michael Carter Jr. at all. I don't like the fact that he waited around until round 4 to get drafted, even though I know a lot of people don't pay too much attention to the fact that he drops to round 4. But if you look at his historical hit rates, guys, it is pretty nasty. Okay, so here we were going to be looking at drafting Diamy Brown. If you pull up our rookie rankings, Diamy Brown is a late second round draft pick. Now, I think this puts us in a little bit of a difficult situation, because if it wasn't going to be Brown, I kind of like Hubbard in this range, and Hubbard goes off right as well. So I think what we may do is I think we just go with the player that gets the draft capital, go with the player that I do not like at all, but at least he has a great quarterback throwing him the ball, and he was drafted in the second round ahead of a lot of other players that we liked a little bit more in Dwayne Eskridge. Now, Eskridge is a player that stayed all 5 years in college. He was never really productive. So you look at it and you go, you know what? His profile is disgusting. It looks like something that will never have a shot at breaking out at the NFL level, but he did play defensive back a little bit. So maybe you make the argument that he's an outlier and that you can't just look at the numbers and know everything with Dwayne Eskridge. So maybe this is a case where we just have to kind of trust the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, they spent more draft capital on Eskridge than they did with the DK Metcalf, as crazy as that is to sound. And I am not saying that they are anything close to the same prospects. I'm just trying to give some context behind the selection there. Trust me, I don't like him. I think that he was a very bad pick by the Seattle Seahawks. But once he lasts to the third round, and we know that he was a second round NFL draft pick, we understand that he's probably going to have a shot at having a starting role on that offense based on the fact that David Moore is gone. I think you kind of have to take him there at the 303. But please let me know what y'all are thinking about that. Okay, Cameron is saying, why does this dude look like a Picasso painting? Man, I don't look like a Picasso painting. I look like one of those old English paintings of like the overweight, like white girl that was like painted naked. I would say that that's pretty much what I would look like, that style of painting, but I'll take the compliment nonetheless. Okay, Mike is saying Hawks messed up bad taking Eskridge. Yeah, I really hated that pick. I mean, I would have preferred to see so many other options in that range, but you could go, this is a team that needed a wide receiver with David Moore gone. Maybe they just had him as the highest on their board. Even if I didn't agree with that, you can at least see the rationale there slightly. Okay, now let's go through strap up on the clock. He took Williams, Toney, now Atwell. Atwell is a very similar wide receiver where he gets the draft capital, not someone we like going into the NFL draft, not someone we really like at this point. But at the end of the day, if you can take a second round NFL draft pick here at the 308, I think that's something you have to do. And this goes in line with what I was talking about with someone over on Patreon, where someone was telling me, Mason, why do you not have Michael Carter Jr. ranked ahead of Kadarius Toney? And I was going, man, I understand the situation. I understand that. I hated Kadarius Toney going into the NFL draft. I still think that was a very bad pick by the New York Giants. What, at the end of the day, if you are trying to predict a fourth round running back to be more successful at the NFL level than a first round wide receiver, I think that's going to be a losing bet more times than not, even if we have reasons to go with that. So yes, you have to look at NFL draft capital for some things. It's not everything, but you can't entirely ignore it. Okay, Aiden says, at Mason, I know, but I love Chase, man. Damn, LOL, who do you like more, Lance or Fields? Man, here, like I said before, Trey Lance is so much closer to me. He's so much closer to Trevor Lawrence for me than he is Justin Fields. If the San Francisco 49ers decided to pass on Justin Fields, take Trey Lance, I think, A, you have to trust the team. B, you have to understand that even if you think that Justin Fields is a slightly better quarterback, even if you were going, you know what? I know more than the 49ers. I know more, as well as everybody else who plays Dynasty Fantasy Football. We know more than the NFL. If you were that arrogant to say it, sure, I'm not going to argue with you. If you think Justin Fields is the better quarterback, that is your opinion. But this is fantasy football. You are not drafting a real life team. You are drafting a team to score fake points. You get fake points with rushing production at the quarterback position, as well as having an elite supporting cast around you. Now, Trey Lance has both of those things, and Justin Fields doesn't come close to him on either. So while, yes, you can make the argument that you personally think Justin Fields is a slightly better quarterback, just because you think that doesn't mean he's anything close to Trey Lance in fantasy. If you take Justin Fields over Trey Lance in fantasy, you are losing that bet way more times than not, and I promise you that. Okay, so let me switch this over real quick. Let me grab that link to Patreon. Okay, real quick, let me know if y'all want me to do one or two more of these mock drafts. It's going to be very simple by just letting me know this. Drop a like. We are like 7 likes away from 100 likes. If we get over 100 likes on this, we'll do 2 more mock drafts. We'll do 1 more super flex, and then we'll go through and do 1 single quarterback mock draft. That way we can help out everybody in that. If not, if y'all don't care, y'all just want 1 more, we'll just do it as a 1 quarterback league. But shoot me a DM over on Patreon real quick, and then we can get this link out for the last mock draft, regardless of if it's going to be a 1 quarterback league or a 2 quarterback league. Okay, so let's start a new one. Let's make sure that this is a non-snake. Let's make sure that this is linear. Okay, I will send you this link to Kappa. I got you, my dude. Okay, so also, where should I pick in this mock draft, guys? Please let me know where y'all want me to pick. That way I don't just take the good spots every single time. Okay, I am sending this to Point God real quick. This link to the mock draft, and then I'll send it to everybody on Patreon. I want to make sure that Point God can get in here. Okay, Tio's got it, guys. Now let's go over to Patreon, send out this link. Okay, so it looks like we got over 100 likes. So because of that, we are going to be doing a super flex mock draft, and then the one after this will be the 1 quarterback one. So let me get the link over to Patreon, and here on Patreon, you can find our Dynasty rookie rankings. You can get Dynasty team breakdowns. You can also just support the show and help me continue to do this for 10 hours a day as an actual job. It truly helps so much. And if you want to support the show and you can't support the show on Patreon, that's completely fine. Just by subscribing to the channel, hitting that notification bell, and doing everything you can, that also does it. Okay, so here... Okay, so it looks like people want us to be picking at the 111, 110, 112. We'll do the 110. We'll do something in between. Let's go take the 110. Now let me grab this link to the board and go start getting the links out. And this is going to be a super flex mock draft, guys, like I said. Okay, actually, we got over 120 likes in this live stream. So I think what we may actually do instead is let's just send this in the live chat. I'm just going to send this in the live chat because y'all are absolutely killing the support. We have over 240 people in here. I'll send that out so y'all can hop in. And also, I mean, this is just absolutely crazy. Okay, I guess as we wait for this to fill, I can talk a little bit more about my actual life real quick. And so not only did I decide to make this a full-time job with all the support on Patreon, but also what we are doing is we are moving out of Austin. I am moving to Tampa, Florida, and we are going to have a completely different setup. I'm going to get an apartment where I can just make a full-on studio for these videos, for these live streams. So the background is going to be different. I think what we're probably going to do is we're going to be further from the wall, so you can probably see the majority of the apartment, but I want to fill the wall, not just with 3 jerseys. I want to fill it with a ton of different things. So if you have anything cool that you think should go on the wall, if you have any suggestions, please message me through Patreon, message me through Discord, message me through Twitter, Instagram. I don't care what it is. If you want to send me something personally, that is fantastic. We have had this helmet sent to us personally, which is about the best thing. And it just makes my day whenever we have something like that. And also Wanted Alex in the Discord chat is making us a wood carving of the logo that we can frame on the wall. And that's going to be very exciting. But if y'all have any suggestions, if y'all want to send anything that can be in the studio, that can be in the background, please go shoot me a DM somewhere. Okay. So it looks like we are full. Let me switch this over to the new screen and we can get this draft going. Okay, so here we are at the 110. Point God takes right before us to come in and make sure he is going to be sniping us. But anyway, C Money up on the clock at the 101. This is a super flex league, guys. So I want to reiterate, this is not a 1 quarterback. The next one is going to be a 1 quarterback. So this pick here is probably very easy. It's still pretty standard going with Trevor Lawrence. And I'm not going to talk about Trey Lance versus Trevor Lawrence anymore because we've done it 10 times now. If you want to argue with me, shoot me a DM on Patreon. We can do it there. I'm not going to be doing it in the live draft. But if we go through, we have C Money and we have Imp here, guys. If y'all recognize Imp, he is actually in the Flock 12 Patreon Dynasty League. That one we live streamed about 2 weeks ago at the start of, and he absolutely killed it. He pulled off some trades that I didn't know were possible. He really probably came away with the best team in that league, so I want to give him a massive shout out on that. Kid Royale is in here. Jayan is in here yet again. Jayan is someone that's in the Flock 2 Patreon Dynasty League, and I'm just going to put it this. He did not come anything close to Imp, where Imp just straight up killed it. But Kid Royale coming up here with the 104 in Justin Fields. And this is another thing I was talking about, where Justin Fields and Zach Wilson, for me, are personally so close. Yet, if you check over on Patreon, currently we have Zach Wilson ranked ahead of Justin Fields. Maybe we already changed it, but it was something that I was thinking that we possibly were going to need to change based on the fact that everybody else values Justin Fields higher. So if you're playing in a ton of dynasty leagues, if you're on the clock and both of those guys are there, maybe you just have to take Justin Fields because you know you're going to have the opportunity to take Zach Wilson later on. So maybe that's another switch, like we were talking about with Michael Carter Jr., where maybe, yeah, we don't like him as a late second round pick. If he falls there, you have to take him based on the value alone. Maybe that's the same thing with taking Justin Fields over Zach Wilson. But here, the craziest pick we have seen today, Devonte Smith going off the board at the 105. And here, I mean, I can't get behind it when Travis Etienne and Kyle Pitts are both on the board. If you really want to come at me and you really want to say, Mason, Devonte Smith is a better wide receiver prospect than Jamar Chase, I'm not going to argue with you too much. I'll just say, okay, you're wrong. I was right with you at the very beginning of the offseason before we had the testing or the size measurables for either wide receiver. Then it's clear that Chase is better. But when you take him ahead of a running back that is a 3-down guy that gets drafted in the first round of the NFL draft, when you take him ahead of the best tight end prospect of all time in a tight end premium format, that's where it just becomes a ludicrous pick, where I think the earliest you could possibly conceive of taking Devonte Smith would be probably at the 109, 110. But anyway, at the 110, Point God gives us a gift. He takes Jalen Waddle as a massive Alabama homer. So here we are going to be getting Javonte Williams, a running back I did not love coming into the NFL draft. But like I said, guys, I am wrong all the time. And we saw the Denver Broncos not only draft Javonte Williams at the very top of the second round, but more importantly, they traded up to draft Javonte Williams, which means they have a plan for him right away. They are going to implement him in their offense right away, similar to what we saw with Jonathan Taylor last offseason. So yeah, I think at this point, you have Williams as someone that has to look like he is going to be a 3-down running back in Denver, and that's also a team that could bring in Jordan Love. They could bring in Aaron Rodgers. So Javonte Williams at the 110 is going to be an easy pick. Crap, I did not even notice this. Zach Wilson was still available. Zach Wilson, how did he fall to the 112? I did not even know. oh my God. So was it Devonte Smith who pushed him down? No, what it was is Devonte Smith and Jalen Waddle pushed him down. So I saw one of those picks and I went, okay, the last guy in the tier is Williams. But no, Zach Wilson here at the 112, behind Mac Jones even. That is absolutely absurd. If I wasn't live streaming, I promise you, we wouldn't have made that mistake. We would have taken Zach Wilson there at the 110. But man, here, Jake Claw, you have no excuse. You weren't live streaming. You weren't trying to talk through this. Zach Wilson at the 112, you're never going to see that in a Superflex rookie draft. That is absolutely crazy. Okay. A Mob says, thoughts on getting Toney in a PPR dynasty at the 210. Man, I hate Kadarius Toney. I think that if you look at the pick by the Giants, it's a very bad pick. I think Kadarius Toney is literally just a worse version of Elijah Moore in every possible way. But if you're looking at a first-round drafted wide receiver, if you're getting him at the very end of the second round, that's something you have to do. I mean, I have made that same draft pick in multiple dynasty leagues already where I don't like Kadarius Toney, but a lot of these times I'm sitting with the 210 and I'm like, do I take Kadarius Toney or do I take Michael Carter Jr.? Of course, you're having to take Kadarius Toney out of those two players as the round one guy who's guaranteed to get the opportunity. But still, you're not happy while you do it. You just kind of hold your nose and you go, okay, let's just eat my green peas. Let's just take the first round drafted wide receiver, even if he looks nothing like a real impact player in Dynasty. But yeah, I think that at the 210, you have to do it. I mean, if Kadarius Toney falls here at the 210, we are going to. But no, he goes at the 205, and it looks like Trey Sermon is plummeting down right now. It looks like Trey Sermon, I mean, not even going at the 206. Okay, Trey Sermon right now is the best value available. I mean, there's no way he makes it to the 210, so I'm willing to say this out loud, but Trey Sermon compared to a player like Kadarius Toney, I think that I would prefer Trey Sermon even with the lack of NFL draft capital. I mean, the situation is too good to go along with it. They traded up for him, which we were talking about with Javonte Williams earlier. And if you look historically, those teams that trade up for players, that's a fantastic sign. That's why we are stashing Jordan Love everywhere. And it's because the Green Bay Packers in that 2020 NFL draft didn't just sit around and go, well, Jordan Love is the highest graded player. We really don't know what to do with this pick. Let's just go best player on our board. No, when a team goes out of their way to go and get a guy, you know that they have plans for that player. That's why we were stashing Jordan Love. That's why it looks like it's really going to work out with Aaron Rodgers most likely leaving. So I think the same thing here with Trey Sermon. I mean, they went up to get him. So now you have to go crap. Well, looks like Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers, they have their plan. They know what they are going to be doing with Sermon. It's not too big of a running back room for him to leapfrog. So I think that's completely fine. Now, Kenneth Gainwell here at the 208. Now, that pick is horrible. I'm just going to say you cannot draft Kenneth Gainwell, a guy that lasted all the way to the 5th round here in the middle of the second. Despite whatever you think about his landing spot, despite whatever you think about his talent, this is exactly what we saw with Equanimeous St. Brown. This is exactly what we saw with Hakeem Butler. The Dynasty community, including myself, valued Kenneth Gainwell much higher than a late second-round rookie pick going into the NFL draft. Yet then the NFL decides that Kenneth Gainwell is not worth anything close to what the Dynasty community thought prior, and there are always a few people that are unwilling to let go of their priors, unwilling to look at that new information that we have coming in, and significantly drop down Kenneth Gainwell. So if you go over and if you look at our rookie rankings on Patreon, you are going to find that Kenneth Gainwell is nowhere near this range. I mean, if you're going off those rankings, you will literally not draft Kenneth Gainwell in a single draft. But here what we are going to do is we are going to do something very similar to what we did in the first mock. We are going to be taking Michael Carter Jr. there at the 210. Like I said, I really don't like Carter Jr., but based on the fact that the Dynasty community is going to value him in a certain range, if you are going to be passing up on him in the late second, I think that is most likely a mistake. Okay, but let's go through and, okay, so Loeb Jop says, Sleeper, he said Gainwell was a misclick. Okay, that's one bad thing about Sleeper, to be completely honest, is I have no idea why they do not just have a confirm draft button. That is something that we've dealt with a lot in the Patreon startups where I swear to God, I have to change a pick every other round just because it's a misclick. And it's clearly a misclick because as soon as they do it, they shoot a DM, they go, crap, I didn't mean to do that. Please switch it, please switch it, please switch it. And in that case, it's not a gray area thing. It's black and white. This guy made a mistake. He did not intend to draft that player. And it kind of sucks. I don't know why they just don't go, are you sure you want to draft Kenneth Gainwell? And then you have to click draft again. It's no extra work. And at the same time, it saves a lot of headache from people making those mistakes. But anyway, you have Amari St. Brown and Amari Rogers going there at the late second. Like I said, guys, personally, I think Amari Rogers is a much better player to invest into than Michael Carter Jr. If you look over at our rookie rankings, you're going to see that Amari Rogers is ranked higher than Michael Carter Jr. But the problem is, like we were talking about, with how the Dynasty community values these players, I think that if I was on the clock and I was forced to make that pick, probably, even though I would rank Amari Rogers higher, even though that if I was having to make a bet on how these players would perform in a vacuum over the next few years, I would rather have my money on Amari Rogers. We know that with the Dynasty community, how it moves up and down, with how you have sell opportunities for those rookie running backs, I think that Michael Carter Jr. may be the better investment, just with plans to flip him almost immediately. So yeah, we take Carter Jr. at the 210, but I think that you're looking at Amari Rogers at the 212, and that's fantastic value. I mean, Tiger Style has absolutely killed it. Zach Wilson and Amari Rogers, probably considering that he was drafting from the 112, the most impressive rookie draft that we've had from all of these mocks so far. Tia Kappa says Mason is secretly the biggest Michael Carter Jr. fan. Yeah, like I have like a little shrine of Michael Carter Jr. in my room, and I just go over to him and I'm like, man, you're going to be on every single one of my Dynasty teams. I'm going to try to lower your Dynasty value so much so I can get you everywhere. No, man, I promise you, I do not like small running backs that are unathletic. That is the exact opposite of what you want. You don't want a small running back that is very slow and then gets drafted on day 3 of the NFL draft. I mean, that's a worse version of Devin Singletary. We called him Devin Singletary coming into the NFL draft when a lot of people thought he was going to get drafted in the second round. A lot of people thought that he was going to be a first round rookie draft pick. And we were going, hey, no, guys, this is Devin Singletary. And it's worse than Devin Singletary. Singletary went into the 3rd, and Michael Carter Jr. last to day 3, where if you look at the historical hit rates, if you check out our rookie draft guide over on Patreon, you're going to find that once those running backs fall to round 4, I mean, their historical hit rates are so low. Okay. So JN says, straight up, this man's secretly a UNC fan. Yeah, y'all know that I've been bashing these UNC players. Like Diamy Brown was another player that I was calling very overhyped coming into the NFL draft. I was saying that he looks like James Washington. And at this point, I think that, I mean, our concerns were kind of true. He lasts a lot further. I mean, you have both players like Tutu Atwell and Dwayne Eskridge going ahead of him. But both of those guys have gone off the board already. So if we were pulling up our rookie rankings to see who we have highest out of this group, I think that we are probably going to be having to go down to the very end. Oh my gosh, are y'all just going through? And I think we're going to take Brevin Jordan here. Brevin Jordan is another player that fell in the NFL draft, but similar to Amari St. Brown, I'm kind of willing to give Brevin Jordan a pass on getting drafted after a lot of those other tight ends. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Long is still available. Of course, we're going to be taking Long over Brevin Jordan, but Brevin Jordan is a tight end that I'm willing to give the draft capital pass to, because you look at how NFL talent evaluators value the tight end position. And of course, they are going to go for the guys that can block and can receive at the same time, while Brevin Jordan can really only receive. And we know that that is what's valuable in fantasy. So that's what makes a player probably more valuable in fantasy than he does in the real life NFL. But anyway, nonetheless, we don't have to make that decision. We get 3rd round NFL draft pick Hunter Long at the 310. Okay, so let's grab a link over to Patreon real quick. And guys, shoot me a DM over on Patreon if y'all want this next mock draft. This is going to be our last one. This is going to be a 1 quarterback mock draft like I promised y'all that we will do. So please, guys, look at this, and it will be a 1 quarterback. I will change the title of the draft to make sure that everybody knows that we are in it. Okay, but let's see this last one. Okay, book, going off the book board here. Don't really love that pick, but it is whatever. Okay, so let's pull this up. Let's delete this draft. And this is also not going to be tight end premium. This is just going to be a very standard PPR 1 quarterback league. Okay, 1 quarterback. Let's make sure that this is not snake. Let's make sure that this is linear. And here I'm going to be taking we'll take the 104 in this draft. We've been going early, late. I think that is something that's probably smart for us to do. And now let's go grab that link for Patreon. I'll send it in the live chat if anybody wants to join this next mock draft. Okay, Santiago says, Heisman winner Devonte Smith going to be an all-pro wide receiver. Man, trust me, I am rooting for Devonte Smith. I mean, I loved him coming into the process. If you looked at the elite level of production he had, I mean, it's almost hard to say that he is going to be a bust, even though he does look like an outlier. If you look at the fact that he is unbelievably small, but still, production is the number one thing at the wide receiver position, and that's what you have from Devonte Smith. So trust me, man, I am rooting for it. I don't think it's likely, but I would love to see it. It's also a pretty bad landing spot given the fact that you're not going to be expecting much passing volume in Philadelphia, and this is coming from someone who does really like Jalen Hurts, who thinks that Jalen Hurts is most likely going to be a very good fantasy asset, but I think from a real-life NFL standpoint, it's going to be very much like Baltimore, where the passing volume may not be there, even if Jalen Hurts is a great option himself. It doesn't mean his pass-catching options are going to be great in fantasy because he can generate so much of his own value through the run. Okay, so let's send out these links, and I want to remind everyone, this is a one quarterback league. Okay, JN says, has Colin Johnson responded to you? No, man. Like I said, guys, I went through and I DM'd a bunch of college players that were going into the NFL, a few guys that are still in the NFL, and I was like, hey, can I please get you on my podcast? Can we please get some interviews going? And despite us having a bigger audience than a lot of these shows that they do join, because I have like no followers on Twitter, and it's something that I do a very bad job of promoting, I just kind of look like a college kid that's not up to anything. So yeah, no, we did not get any replies, sadly, my man. Okay, so let's go. Let's see if we have any more requests to get into this mock draft. Okay, Santiago, I just realized that I accidentally mispronounced your name, but anyway, thank you so much for coming out to the live stream. And yeah, I'll just try to read names better from now on. Legacy says they won't feed Sanders either, though. I mean, guys, literally Kenneth Gainwell is literally, I mean, he's just Boston Scott's replacement. He is a slightly better version of Boston Scott. That's all he is. Please don't think anything else. Okay, Santiago is also saying Colin Johnson is a stash. Yeah, no, Colin Johnson actually came out of this NFL draft in a much better situation. I thought that the Jacksonville Jaguars were most likely going to invest into the wide receiver position, yet they don't. DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault, and Colin Johnson all looking like they are going to be not every down players in the case of Colin Johnson, but guys that have a shot, to contribute. Okay, so let me just grab this link. Let's end this live stream pretty soon because we have been going for an hour now, so I am going to send out the link to the sleeper draft in the live chat. That way we can fill this up and we can get this going very soon. Also, I'm out of water, so I am about to die. Okay. Oh my God. That water is exactly what I needed. Okay, also, we've got this live stream up to 140 likes. That's absolutely crazy. I think for the Dynasty channel, that is an all-time live stream record. So thank you so much for everybody coming out. Thank you so much for everybody who's smashing that like button. And the flock is growing, guys. I'm telling y'all, we are going to take over. Everybody a part of this is going to just be along for the ride. It's going to be so much fun. But let's flip this around. Let's get this mock draft going. And this is a one quarterback mock draft. I want to remind everyone, this is a one QB mock draft. If I see a Trevor Lawrence going off the 101 or the 102, we are going to be manually changing that pick. Okay, but no, it looks like he knows it's a one quarterback. Najee Harris going off with the first selection overall. That is pretty much standard in my opinion. I do not think you should be going with the Jamar Chase. I do not think you should be going with the Kyle Pitts. Obviously, I love Travis Etienne, but at this point, you still have to say Najee Harris with the landing spot. Najee Harris looking like he's going to get the 3-down workload. Has to be the 101 in a one-quarterback league. Then you have Jamar Chase going off the board at the 102. At the 103, here, you're pretty much looking at three players, in my opinion. You're looking at Travis Etienne, Javonte Williams, and Kyle Pitts. You're going to take your shot out of those three. Now, at the 104, we are going to have a little bit of an easier decision because we can just look at two of those guys. Okay, so now Jonathan Williams going off the board. I understand why some people would be hesitant to take Travis Etienne over Jonathan Williams. Personally, I cannot, though. I have to go with Travis Etienne, a running back that we liked more going into the NFL draft, a running back that does get that first-round draft capital. And yeah, even if he's competing for a few more touches in that Jacksonville Jaguars offense, given the fact that they have James Robinson there, I still am going to have a very hard time letting go of my priors of having Travis Etienne over Javonte Williams. Okay, so Kyle Pitts at the 105, Devonte Smith at the 106. Okay, CDE says Marvin Jones is on the Jags now for whatever that's worth. Yeah, that's worth something, but I'm talking about from where we stood going into the NFL draft, not where we stood going into the offseason, if that makes sense. Now, Trey Sermon going before Jalen Waddle, I'm not going to say that this is very bad. I'm not going to say that it's very good either. I simply don't know. And like I was saying at the very beginning of the live stream, I think that Trey Sermon, if you look in a vacuum, probably not worth as much as Jalen Waddle. But once you get into your real life rookie drafts, once you have like teams with actual team needs and they go, crap, I need a running back, you're probably going to see Trey Sermon getting pushed up. I mean, in those Superflex leagues, he's probably going to be a late first at the end of the day. And in those one quarterback leagues, it looks like he may be a mid first. Okay, so Elijah Moore coming up at the 109. Okay, so this is very standard. Harris, Chase, Javonte Williams, Travis Etienne, Kyle Pitts, 105. I think that is clearly the tier 1. Then you have Devonte Smith, Trey Sermon, Jalen Waddle, Elijah Moore, Rondell Moore. That's clearly tier 2. I mean, I think there's not much deviation that you can have from that. Here, I think this is where you can start to consider the quarterbacks if you really need one in a one quarterback league. But yeah, no, these are 2 clear tiers. If you're playing in a 1 quarterback format, I think that this is the pick you need to trade for. You need to trade for the 105. If you're playing in a super flex or a 2 QB format, I think you have to go after the 109. Okay, so Rashad Bateman going off. So maybe we make it through the entire first round without a quarterback selected. But given the fact that it looks like Terrace Marshall's probably the only quarterback left in that, the only wide receiver left in that wide receiver 2 tier, I think that probably we maybe see a quarterback here. Maybe we see Trevor Lawrence go off at the 112. Garlic is saying Trey for sure, running back 4 now, in my opinion. Oh, yeah, no, Trey Sermon is easily the running back 4. I mean, Trey Sermon is a lot closer to the running backs ahead of him than he is to a guy like Chuba Hubbard or Michael Carter Jr. If you ever see someone take Michael Carter Jr. over Trey Sermon in a rookie draft, you can go and give yourself a little label of that player and you can go, hey, this guy's a fish. This guy doesn't know how to play Dynasty, because Trey Sermon is easily above those running backs at this point. And it's like, you can't even debate it. Like, y'all know that I'm saying I would hear any debate for someone to have a wide receiver like Devonte Smith, Jalen Waddle, Elijah Moore, Rondell Moore, Rashad Bateman. If you want to have any of those guys as your wide receiver 2, I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to debate you. It's not worth my time. It's not going to be too big of a difference. But if you want to rank a Chuba Hubbard or really anybody, Kenneth Gainwell, a Michael Carter Jr. ahead of Trey Sermon, I mean, I think that's the point where you just go, okay, you're talking crazy right now. That makes no sense. Okay, so now at the 203, let's see where Kid Royale is going to go. He takes Terrace Marshall. That is definitely a really good pick. And here at the 204, we are going to be making a pick that I really want to explain. And mainly the reason we're going to be making is because I want to explain it. So maybe Pat would be our pick here if we were playing in a real league. But I want to take Justin Fields. And let me explain why I'm taking Justin Fields. And that's because I want to show y'all my different evaluations from a super flex to a 1 quarterback format with these guys. So we know in a super flex format, a big reason that those quarterbacks have value is just because it's going to be so hard to buy some baseline production. You're actually going to have to go out there. You're going to have to pay a first round pick to go and get a Sam Darnold. You're going to have to pay a decent amount of capital to replace a quarterback 2 on your roster. So you really need to make sure you're prioritizing the guys that have a high floor at the quarterback position. Where in a 1 quarterback league, those guys that have the high floor, a guy like Baker Mayfield, they're essentially worth nothing. In a 1 quarterback format, all you are doing is chasing upside. So where we are looking at a Justin Fields and we're looking at a Zach Wilson, and we go, you know what, for a super flex league, I think you can make the argument that Zach Wilson is more valuable than Justin Fields, because Zach Wilson, given where he was taken in the NFL draft, given the investment that was made into him historically, we know that he has a very high floor. I mean, he's going to be a starting quarterback for the next 3 years at the very least, even if he's as bad as a Mitchell Trubisky, even if he's as bad as someone like a Sam Darnold before him, he's going to have opportunities to start time and time again. So you have that high floor in a super flex league. But if you're playing in a 1 quarterback league, we can safely say that given the rushing production that Justin Fields possesses, that the ceiling between Fields is going to be higher than the ceiling that Wilson has. And in a 1 quarterback format, when it's so easy to replace the position, everything you're doing is going to be chasing ceiling. So that's why I think in a 1 quarterback league, you really can't make the argument to have a Zach Wilson over Justin Fields, unless maybe you just love Zach Wilson. But I hope that makes sense for y'all. This is something that I've been talking about for a very long time, and just knowing what league format you're playing in, what brings value to a certain position. But Mac Jones here going at the 208. I mean, this is another perfect example of what to talk about in a 1 quarterback league. I mean, Mac Jones, in my opinion, has literally no value in a 1 quarterback league, because what is the upside you're going to be expecting when his best options are players, just say like a Nelson Aguilar, I mean, a Jonnu Smith, a Hunter Henry. Those are his best options this upcoming season. And also, he has literally no rushing upside at all. So I know it's exciting that he is with Bill Belichick, but Mac Jones, a very high floor player and that we know he's going to have at least 1 year to start, but the ceiling in fantasy is not going to be there. I mean, if you're trying to bet on a top 10 finish from Mac Jones, you are betting on an outlier given his rushing production in college, given his supporting cast around him at the NFL. So I really want people to understand that in a one quarterback league, all you are doing is chasing upside at the quarterback position. Nothing else matters. Whereas in a super flex league, there you have to consider floor. You have to go, okay, how many starting years am I guaranteed out of this quarterback option? Because they're going to be two completely different things. Okay, so now let's go. Pat going off the board there at the 302. Even in a non-tight end premium format, I really like that selection. I think that is something that you can get behind, you can get excited about. Now, we are going to have an intriguing pick coming up at the 304. We are going to be pulling up our rookie rankings, guys that we like in this range. Chuba Hubbard is already off the board, so we can't go with the Chuba Hubbard. I guess we can go with possibly Nico Collins. You can go with a guy like Tylan Wallace. And I will say, guys, that Tylan Wallace is going to be a massive faller for me, not only because he lands in a situation in Baltimore that is pretty disgusting, that you is going to have a hard time getting behind, but also he lasts so long in the NFL draft. You see so many other players that we had lower than him going in, then get drafted ahead of him. So I think at that point you go, okay, the NFL is telling us that we shouldn't be that excited about Tylan Wallace. He also, best case scenario, is probably going to be the wide receiver 3 on the roster, because we can look at it and go, okay, Hollywood Brown is definitely going to be on the field with what he can do stretching the field. They spent a first round pick on Rashad Bateman, so they're probably going to give Rashad Bateman the first shot at taking that starting role. And then after that, you have Tylan Wallace competing with wide receivers like Sammy Watkins, who they just signed with a big contract, Devin Duvernay, who they took in the 3rd round last year, Miles Boykin, who they took in the 3rd round a few years ago. And you have actually a smaller team commitment to Tylan Wallace than you do with all those other wide receivers. So Tylan Wallace, his best case scenario is he's the wide receiver 3 on the Baltimore Ravens, where the Ravens aren't going to have the passing volume to even support maybe one wide receiver. So yeah, Tylan Wallace has to be one of the biggest fallers from the NFL draft, not only because he lands in a situation where he isn't guaranteed the opportunity to play every snap, but also he lands in a situation where he just doesn't have the upside. Okay, but Tylan Wallace, just as we were talking about that, goes off at the 305. Okay, so let's go and let's see if we have anything we need to discuss in the chat. JN says, there's a path to my quarterback seeing the field this year. Okay, so obviously JN is going to be taking Sam Ehlinger here. I am assuming that he's going to be taking Sam Ehlinger when we will see that. Okay, Tia Kappa, I see that you muted someone in the chat for hating on us. And guys, I know we talk about this a lot on the main channel when we go live, because there we have a way bigger audience, so people will come in and they'll just drop a bunch of hate at us. I don't want to mute anybody that is hating on us, just because I don't really care when people hate on us. If they're watching the live stream, they're helping out the channel. So I don't care if they're saying dumb stuff in the chat. I mean, it's not like it's going to hurt my feelings or at all. If they're spamming or if they're just being incredibly obnoxious, then they can get muted. But if they're just coming in going, Mason, you don't know what you're talking about. Mason, you're stupid. And they're only doing so like once every 5 minutes. They can do that. I mean, it doesn't affect me. No skin off my back. But Grant is saying Sermon / Elijah Mitchell, a good rookie handcuff, or is that not necessary? Man, I really hate handcuffing. I hear the word handcuff and I just go, okay, that's not something I'm interested in at all. Because when you handcuff a running back, you are, yes, raising your floor, and that if your starting running back goes down, you have an option that you can replace him with. Yet you're lowering your ceiling, because I don't mind getting handcuffed running backs. I don't mind being the guy drafting Tony Pollard. But when I want to be drafting Tony Pollard isn't when I took Ezekiel Elliott in the 1st round. Because say Ezekiel Elliott goes down, Ezekiel Elliott tears his ACL, and then Tony Pollard all of a sudden becomes a low-end running back 1. I'm still not going to be winning my league from that. No, you have to have so many things go right for you to win your 12-man league, for you to be that one guy that wins it. So instead, I want to be the guy drafting Tony Pollard whenever I draft Dalvin Cook in the 1st round. Because when that happens, say Ezekiel Elliott gets injured, then all of a sudden you have 2 top 10 running backs. All of a sudden you have a league-winning running back, and also your roster isn't really hurt in the process to get that league-winning running back. So I don't mind drafting guys that are pure handcuffs, but I don't want to be rostering the starters on my team as well. Okay, so thank you guys. I really appreciate everybody coming out. And like I said, I'm very excited to announce that this is officially our full-time gig. I'm graduating this week, so I'm excited to continue to devote as much time as I can to the channels, devote as much time as I can over on Patreon. And I want to give a massive thank you for everybody who has decided to support the show on Patreon and has allowed us to go through and make this decision. So thank you guys. And yeah, that's it. Tomorrow I will be live with a real Dynasty startup draft. Actually, we'll do a mock Dynasty startup draft, but we will include the rookies. That way you can have a sense of where these rookies are stacking up compared to the veterans. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you drop a like, but more importantly, hit that bell next to the subscribe button. That way, whenever we go live with that mock draft, you can come out, you can participate. Hopefully you can hop in it if you get here early enough. And yeah, that's it. I will see y'all with that live draft tomorrow.